Hey guys, welcome back to the Nature of Being podcast. I'm your host, Mimi,
And I'm Katie.
and today we are talking about the construction of everything. So, we're basically talking about how nothing is real and everything is made up, and ideas, good and bad, time, all of those things were created. So, they're not like inherently real. Um, Someone at some time, at some point, made them up. And how freeing is it to realize that nothing's real? It's
Yeah.
real, but not in the way that maybe we perceive it to be.
Yes. Like in a sense of rules, laws, standards, pressures,
Mhm.
all the things that you hold yourself to are all just things that were made up by someone that was living a completely different experience than you are.
Yeah.
Although the same world, their their day-to-day experience, their year to year, month to month, it's all very different than you. So it's kind of crazy to think about the idea that we listen to all these things and define our entire lives by these things that are inherently made up.
Hmm. Yeah. I
So,
mean, really, the only thing that's real is right now.
mhm.
Um, it's what's right in front of us. But we want to talk about this because we could think that understanding that everything is constructed can allow us to deconstruct the world around us, which then allows us to be, which is the point of this podcast.
Yes, it absolutely is the point of this podcast.
Yeah. So when I think that's really the first step in something that I love, which is deconstructing everything, you have to realize that everything was constructed. Um, I think I basically just said the exact thing that I just said a sentence ago. But when I realized that for the first time, I remember I was sitting in a sociology class my freshman year of college, go Mavs, and I was like,
Go
the
Mavs.
sociology teacher was like, yeah, everything is constructed, nothing's actually just how it is or just real or whatever. Like we just made all these structures up. And I was like, oh, yeah. And I think that was an early start. I mean, years before I really started deconstructing, but it's the first step, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
before
It
you start.
absolutely is like realizing just that you have the ability to deconstruct things and reconstruct them and like create your own
Hmm.
ideas and your own morals and your own just everything. Like you have the ability to not just take what is said to you and taught to you, but you have the ability to like make your own up and decide what what your reality is. And a really this is a very big topic to talk about, but I'm gonna jump into it. Um, we're gonna the first thing I want to talk about is like something as simple yet as complex as time. So like time inherently is just existence. It is what is right now. That is the only time that exists. Um, we have created someone, whoever created time. I'm unsure who it was, but they decided what a minute on a clock was, that there were so many minutes in an hour and so many hours in a day and so many days in a week and a month and a year and so on and so forth. And then that with that became things became they aged with time. Everything then
Hmm.
could be measured. And don't get me wrong, I think time is an incredible measurement. um I think it is very useful, and I think it is a tool that we can all benefit from using,
Hmm.
but it isn't real. Like the idea that when say age, as you aren't just inherently like older on your birthday. Like you are in a sense of like technically you're a day older than you were, but days are made up and so are years and all this because it's just a way to measure something. It's not like all of a sudden your body knows, oh, you're 28 now, like you're old, or
Hmm.
like you're 60, like up another, your body doesn't think on time. And that's why some people live to be so much longer and healthier than other people, because like your body isn't thinking about age. Your body is thinking about how you treat it and what goes into it. And if you run into illnesses or whatever, it's all these other things. Yet we construct it all back to the idea of like having to measure it and having to like define it as something.
Mm-hmm.
And so time is just one of the biggest constructs that I think we can like look at to understand the idea of construction. Um, to understand that something, even though time does pass,
It doesn't at the same time.
yes,
Because it's always right now.
yes, like as time is passing, it's just still this moment.
Like it's still the same moment that
Like
it was. It's just
was, even though it's a moment past, it's still this moment.
it kind of like I don't know why, but it like sort of creeps me out to think about it because like I'll think about like a word that I said like 2 words ago and I'm like, oh my God, like that moment's gone. Like I'll never get it back. Like it's
Mhm.
just like boom to the past, boom, boom, boom. Like it just, you know what I mean? Does that make any sense what I'm saying there?
Yes, yes.
Like each word that comes out of my mouth, like a second later becomes the past. And I'm like, like on to the next moment.
Yep.
I
It
don't
is crazy
really,
because
it's a
you
little weird.
can't even the
It's
idea of
not because it's all
thinking
right
about
now, but
yeah. And even the idea of thinking about enjoying the moment is so hard because you're like, I'm enjoying right now, but all of a sudden it's not right. It's still right now, but it's a different right now than
but when
that.
you said right now the first time, that moment's gone.
Exactly. That right now is gone now because it's now right, the new right now. But when you think of it all as just right now and you don't think of it as yesterday, tomorrow, like 6 years ago, whatever, you just think of it as now and the limitless potential that is each moment, you start to realize how much more power and just like potential that you have to be whatever you want to be, because each moment, every moment is a new opportunity, every single one. And yet, so we need to stop limiting ourselves to the idea that, well, if I didn't accomplish this by this time, well, then I don't know if I can do it. Who set that standard? You did, or your
Or you just
teacher did,
like
your
bought
parent.
into what everybody's been telling you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've set that. You've limited yourself, and you've decided that like if you don't accomplish something on a certain timeline, it's not capable of being accomplished at all. Um,
The timeline is like, that's a really spooky one too, because like
mm-hmm,
the timeline doesn't really exist. Oh my God. And another thing, I think I reposted this on our Nature of Being TikTok, like, because I found it in my TikTok on my own TikTok, but it was
mm-hmm,
talking about um, like how we think of our life as like a train track and how it's like you're on the train track and you're like shooting for whatever the hell is on the end. And then
mm-hmm,
if you fall off, you're off the train. You have to get back on the train. But like I think that's how we've been like programmed to um like perceive life
mm-hmm.
is that we're on the train track, but like there isn't a train track because like you can't fall off of it because there's no track to fall off of because it's
Mm-hmm.
all just now.
Yes.
We just
It,
hear this like get back on the wagon thing, which
mm-hmm.
again is like a good metaphor for some things, but at the same time it's like it's not real because there was never a wagon that you were on and you fell off of. It's just the same wagon.
Exactly.
You're
It's
always on
just,
it.
yeah. It's the same idea. This is something I've talked about in a couple TikToks, is being lost. We perceive or we're told or we think like, oh, I'm so lost, like I'm not where I'm supposed to be. But who who came up with where you were supposed to be?
Mm-hmm.
Like whoever decided that if you aren't there, you're lost. It's like you can't be lost if there's nowhere to go. And there
Mm-hmm.
is nowhere to go because again, the only thing that exists is right here and right now. Yet we bully ourselves into being like, I'm lost. I'm a failure. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. And then we get anxious and we get upset and we get into negative patterns that cause other things and cause like mental health issues. You know, we get caught in these ideas of construction and ideas of where we're supposed to be and who we're supposed to be and what rules we're supposed to follow and what is good and bad and other you know, like
Mhm.
we consistently bully ourselves and play victim and do all of these things that negate what is experience because you're just always trying to define it instead of just letting it be what it is. And by doing that, you're missing what is. And that's why, in terms, you feel lost, but you're not
You were
because there's
never
nowhere.
lost.
No, and you never will be lost because there is nowhere else to be.
That was beautiful. What Katie was referencing before about like labeling things, like labeling the experience, labeling I'm lost, labeling I'm off track, labeling I'm like found and I'm good and I'm on the track or whatever. But I think we also label things as good and bad a lot. And I think that can be sketchy. I think we talked about this with Shannon a little bit on the last episode too.
We
Because I
briefly
thought
discussed, but
I thought she said, I
same.
think she like caught one of us and she was like, we got to be careful about labeling things as good and bad. And we're like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you're right, Shannon.
You're right. You're right.
You're right about everything.
You are, Shannon, if you're listening.
We love you so much. You're so
We
smart.
do.
Um, but I mean, how interesting is that? How we take something as simple as like crying and we're like, that's inherently bad.
Mm-hmm.
Or laughing is inherently good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's obviously not true because sometimes I
No.
laugh so hard I'm crying, or sometimes I'm laughing because I'm actually really uncomfortable, or um, I'm crying because I just really needed that release after a day, you know? That's a
Mhm.
good thing. That felt good. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think by us, you know, labeling those things as good and bad, like say crying's perfect example, and say you did just like need a release, then you almost feel bad because you're like, wait, why am I sad? But you don't understand it because you don't actually feel sad. It's because we've just tied that emotion or that act to like an entire emotion of being sad instead of like realizing that crying is an act. It is something that happens. It is a reaction, but it could have multiple things that cause that reaction, and they
Mhm.
don't all. There's a million reasons why you could cry, so we can't just like categorize crying as bad or sad
Mhm.
because that would just be so. It's just so inaccurate. But yet we do that with so many things,
Like everything.
literally everything. Perfect example. One of my um, good friends, I was talking to her, and I was explaining kind of like how I was feeling this past like month and just some things because I couldn't like put a label on how I was feeling because it wasn't a negative thing and it wasn't per se a positive thing. It was just like a very different emotion that I'd been feeling. And after explaining to her kind of where I was at, she was like, I think you're just lonely. And in my head, I'm like, well, lonely is a bad thing. And that
Mhm.
means I would have to be sad if I'm lonely and I'm not sad. So, like, that doesn't make sense. And then that was when it was kind of like her helping me understand and come to that realization of being like, that was a label that I had put on lonely and realizing that, like, just I was feeling lonely, but that wasn't a bad thing. It was just labeling a feeling I was having in the moment. And then it, you know, it continued on to be what it was. It didn't have to be anything more than that. But we've categorized all of these things in our lives as good and bad. And everything is, it does not always fall into one category. And that goes way deeper than just something as simple as that. Um, but to explain it in the simplest terms, that's it. But I mean, good and bad can go as far as just your morals and how you look at things, um, and how everyone's experience is so different. And the more you experience, the more you understand. And the more you understand, the broader and broader the spectrum gets, and the less black and white things become. And the more you just see things for what they are and not the category that you want it to be in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that people in general would just benefit a lot from kind of stop trying to categorize things into good and bad. Stop trying to categorize things into a specific category and realizing that everything is fluid. Life is fluid, feelings are fluid, existence is just fluid, and it's constantly like an ebb and flow of all of the things, and we don't need to categorize things at
Yeah, I
all.
mean, like everything just be being, and then we like
Mhm.
put little tags on everything. We're like, this goes in this box, this goes here, this is positive, this is negative. I have a little personal anecdote to add to what you were saying about the loneliness thing.
Mhm.
I started therapy and um
Go.
I had a really good talk with my therapist actually um a couple weeks ago. Maybe it was last week. And we were talking about marriage. And obviously, if you listen to this podcast, you probably know me and Katie's opinions on that. Um, but she was kind of explaining to me about how, like, that is the story that I have been telling myself for so long, which is like, it's bad. It's everybody loses themselves in marriage. Like, nothing, like, in my head, I'm like, everything negative encapsulates marriage. And she's like, does it? And she was kind of asking me all these questions. And I was like, well, no. Well, no. I mean, I guess. And then I like realized that so much of that was like a story that I had been telling myself for so long. And she's like, a lot of the emotions and thoughts and the category of like good and bad that we place things in our life are just because we've been telling ourselves that for so long. Maybe that's really obvious, but sometimes when you hear that from like an unbiased source, you're like, oh yeah, I guess.
Mhm.
Um, and I just kind of lost my train of thought. I don't know. I guess it's just interesting because while we're talking about construction, like we've also kind of taken the construction that is, and then we've kind of like constructed it in a different way in our head, and then like beat that to death in our own head.
Yes.
Like these stories about where we categorize things. I hope
Yeah.
everyone's following.
Yeah.
That was like
I mean,
maybe
it's
really
so true. Like
long-winded.
we categorize like who we are, who other people are, who we think we should be, or who, I mean, something as simple as like how you categorized like people in high school in the sense of like jock and nerd and band nerd, like we had those labels and they were
Mm-hmm.
so apparent in something like high school. And then as you like got out in the world and you realized how, first off, how limiting those labels were, because
Mm-hmm.
being someone that like I never was in a specific group, I just was friends with kind of like all different kinds of people. I always just thought it was so interesting when people would like generalize a whole group of people. I'm like, you do realize those people are into so many more things than just that one thing. Like the sports guys are into a lot more than just sports. People
Mm-hmm.
that are in band are into so much more than just band. Yet these everyone else is limiting them and in their own head of like who these people are because of those labels. And then that becomes just more or less and less apparent like when you go to college, like those don't follow you, and
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden you as a person feel like you can grow and achieve more because you're not you don't feel as like labeled, and you don't feel like someone's telling you like who you should be. And it's cool, and that's why I think I've really enjoyed moving so much in my life too, is because it's also another way to kind of just let go of a lot of those things that are constructed in your own mind or in your society. um and people are going to construct their own opinions of you, and they're going to construct their own opinions of the world, and you can't help that a lot of people are going to do that. But what you can help is yourself in the idea of you don't have to hold on to those constructions. You don't have to mold yourself to be anything than what you are right here. And I think by deconstructing those, all of the things that
Mm-hmm.
you're limiting yourself by, or you're limiting your other relationships with other people, um, you'll just find so much more opportunity and so much more empathy and so much more compassion for the people around you and the things that are happening around you, because you'll see that it is a lot more complicated than just like what you think it is. And people are more complicated and this existence is more complicated.
I mean, think about like just even as adults, like it gets, I feel like worse because we're just like, what do you do? And then it's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, and then we define people by that.
That is one
Well,
question like I rarely ask people
I
within
try
like
not to.
the first like couple times. Like, I mean, I've hung out with friends like 4 or 5 times before I know what they do for work, because to me, I just think that's such a limiting thing, is like, because, and maybe it's because I,
I like literally don't even really know what Katie does. I know she like works like for the U of M sort of, and
kind
like
of,
it's sort of
I work at the
sciencey,
U of M, not for them, but yeah,
but like I literally couldn't fucking tell you what she does because it
because
is
it's,
such a small part of Katie, and it's just not the part of Katie that I
yeah.
deal with. So
No, and it's not, I truly have no, absolutely no attachment or care about like, I work to make money
Mhm.
because we live in a capitalistic country that requires me to work to make money.
Yeah.
I, other than that, like, you know, that's not what like is, that's not me. That is something that I do with some of my time,
Uh-huh.
but it isn't who I am. It's not how I show up. It's not my empathy. It's not my kindness. It's not my like existence. It's not like what I choose to define myself by. So like why would that be the first question that I would ask someone else? So it is kind of funny when you like look at this. I mean, Mimi and I talk all the time and we are very good friends and we've known each other for many a years, and for her to not even know, like it's just kind of,
It's
it
like I
just goes
know,
to
but like
show.
I couldn't tell you what your position is. I could tell you like maybe a subtle vibe of what you do, but I could not pull it out of my butt if I wanted to.
Oh my
I don't
gosh.
know what it is.
So for everyone wondering, Mimi included here, obviously, I sell lab equipment that goes into science labs at the University of Minnesota.
So you're in
Um,
sales?
I'm in sales. Yes, I'm in science sales and
Okay,
marketing. I also freelance market as well. But yes, I my main job is in sales. Um,
okay, I did know the lab equipment thing, like now that you say it, but
okay, yep.
like sales did not register to me ever.
Oh, but again, it's like, you know, it's,
Yeah.
isn't that funny how like some people like define themselves in such boxes that you could be like, that is just like who they are, but it isn't. It's just a, no matter what, it's just like this small part of who you are, like everything, what your job, what you do for fun, like all of these, they just all make up
Hmm.
each existence and each moment, because every, in a new moment, like I could get a new job tomorrow and that we could have nothing to do with what I do today. So like, why would I spend my entire life believing that I was,
Hmm.
that was a part of like
That you were
me?
at the lab equipment sales.
Yes.
Yeah, that is me.
And I think that that was something that I really, that whole idea of not labeling yourself
Mhm.
like that was something that I deconstructed when I was a college athlete. And when I was deciding to leave college athletics by choice, it was one of those things where for so long I defined myself as an athlete. and as a swimmer. And then I started to notice myself deconstruct that. And I started to notice it wasn't how I introduced myself to people anymore. It wasn't even something that, like, again, people would know me for months at a time in college and not even know that I swam unless they like were asking me about what I was doing and I said I was going to practice or a meet or something, but it wasn't something I actively talked about. And it was then that I realized how much it didn't define me, and it didn't,
Mhm.
it wasn't something that I even like enjoyed anymore. And that's when I ended up leaving. But it was cool to be able to deconstruct something that at one point I considered my identity,
I think
and
that's like
realizing
most
how fake that is.
athletes, if you grow up in athletics of some kind or like whether it's a sport or like, I don't know, it could be like choir or band or something or whatever your thing was maybe growing up. I think it's so normal to like have that be your identifier and be your everything, but it makes it so hard for you to like give it up when you like are ready to, because you're like, no,
Mm-hmm.
that's me and I wouldn't be me
Yeah.
without it. Because that's how it was for me with dance for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And I should have quit years before. And like, I just kept quitting because I was just like, "Ah." But
But isn't that weird how much we like convince ourselves that we aren't anything without that label? And then
mhm,
you realize how that label was just something you attached to, and it never, ever, ever was. It never defined your value. It never defined your worth, because that is something that cannot be created nor destroyed. Your value, you are inherently valuable. Like, you exist valuable. Like, you cannot, that can't just be taken away because you don't fit into that box anymore,
mhm.
because you don't live up to that societal standard of good and bad, or you make a mistake and say you hurt someone. And guess what? You're still valuable. You're still you. We need to let go of the idea that these made up constructs can deter away from like who we are and just our value, because they can't,
Mhm.
because they're made up. They are made up. And we need to stop beating ourselves up for not living up to them.
Well, there's like nothing that could make you more valuable or less valuable.
No, nothing.
Like you just are. You're already good enough.
You were
You're already,
born with the value that is
yeah.
still in you.
But I think we all kind of like torture ourselves with the idea that we'll be more if we do other things, or we'll be more if we become this thing that can fit in this box.
Yep.
And
We
to some people, yeah, maybe you will have more value, but like
You won't.
it's
You'll
not the
think
kind
you
of
will.
person. Yeah.
In your mind, you might think, oh, I gained value.
Hmm.
And the idea of being able to gain value via an external source is also made up.
Hmm.
Like, that is not possible. Like, just because you say have a kid, it doesn't make you any more valuable than someone that doesn't produce kids.
Hmm.
And being a homeowner doesn't make you any more valuable than someone that doesn't own a home. And money, having more money than someone else, doesn't make you any more valuable.
Hmm.
Yet, those are all things that in today's society, people genuinely believe can add and take away from your inherent value.
It's weird too when you like even when you're like doing your taxes and you have to like talk about your actual value and it makes you feel so worthless because you're like, wow, am I ever gonna own a home? Like, wow, am I ever gonna like have investments or like build up a retirement? Because like we also value those as making us valuable.
Mm-hmm. And it
That
is,
makes
but
you feel
again,
really
it's like,
shitty.
but again, it's because we've defined monetary value
Yeah.
as inherent value. Like, we've almost tied them together and been like, if you are not monetarily valuable, you are less valuable as a person. I think that is something that like I have very much tried to always push the envelope on in everyone I meet, I want to break that barrier. Like, I want people to not think that money, your monetary amount, your monetary value, whatever you want to call it, has nothing to do with your actual value of being a person. Like, you could have no money. I could meet some of the most incredible people that I have met are people that are not millionaires. They're not billionaires. They're just people. And I could have never known how much money they made or ever known anything about their wealth. And I would absolutely still think that they are some of the most valuable conversations, some of the most valuable relationships, some of the most value, just, just anything. Like, I feel like they are just valuable because it is who they are. It's not because of how much money they make. But we tie them so closely together, especially in the society that we live in.
I mean, think about how we treat homelessness in this country.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's extremely heartbreaking. And
I mean, it's like, I don't know. I don't even know if I need to go down that road, but it just reminds me of the value that we like literally like don't even place on those like human beings. Like these are someone's kids. This person could be someone's cousin, someone's brother. Like that person is related to other people that are also not on the street likely. And
yeah,
like somehow they like we don't and we don't do anything for them, but that's another conversation.
yep, absolutely. That is, but it is a perfect example of just how much our government and our society
Mm-hmm.
has convinced us, truly convinced us, that your value can be constructed
Mm-hmm.
and defined and taken away and added to. And we need to deconstruct that as well. We need to deconstruct the need to place value in external sources. We need to deconstruct that because it's not real. And you're literally only hurting yourself and other people by consistently believing in that.
Mm-hmm.
By consistently believing that you can be less than is just hurting yourself. Because you can't be. You can't be less than this moment. And this moment is the limitless potential of everything. So you can't be less than that because you're existing in this moment, just like everyone else is. So inherently, we are all equally the same because we are all just this moment. And that's limitless. And on to our next topic. Speaking of, because I do know what Mimi does for a living. And she is a personal trainer, fitness coach, wellness coach, life coach, all the coaches. She is just here for all your coaching needs. So another thing that I want to kind of pass the mic off to her on is just kind of the overall construction of the fitness, health, wellness space and kind of like the toxicity behind that and kind of how you would recommend people go about deconstructing that to more positively influence those things in their life.
That was like such a formal handoff. I feel like I was like very like well introduced there.
Yeah,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome.
Um,
Anytime.
yes, I'm a personal trainer. I think with this topic, it's just like the prevalence of like body image specifically, especially like because I work with so many women and a lot of, I guess we'll just say like millennial age women. Um, a lot of people that come from like the height of thinner is better, the smaller the better. So they in turn have, I mean, body image issues as we all do, but I don't know. There's something about, I think, generations before us that is more aggressive in that way. I don't know if you can attest to that at all, but
No,
because
yeah, I mean, definitely, I would say like the body image push and trend and the construction of what is deemed healthy and not healthy is not only extremely prevalent, but it's also ever changing. So you,
Mhm. I think it's hit our generation in a different way
Mhm.
and probably just as damaging of ways and
Yeah,
similar, but I don't know. Anyways, that's kind of besides the point. Um, but I have to like work with people constantly kind of like battling against that because they a lot of times unfortunately come to me because they want to change their body because they want to make it smaller because they think if it's smaller it's better. I think it's smaller that their life is gonna be more fulfilling. They think everything good in life is gonna happen when their body is smaller. And a lot of times these are women who are already like perfectly healthy too. But like because we have
yeah,
this idea in our head of what we think health is and what we think beauty is, we like are trying to contort ourselves into that. But there was never anything wrong with your body because the issue is this BS that's being pushed on us that isn't real. Like it's not real at all.
yeah.
That's how we sell things.
Absolutely. It is such a sales pitch. And I know that was something that we talked about in one of our earlier episodes,
Yeah.
was how much us hating our bodies is used to like sell products.
Hmm.
Um,
And
but
like
no,
hating each other, pinning women against each other. Like
yes,
it's all part of the machine to make money. So
yes. And
awesome.
it
I
goes
love
back to that value, the value topic we were talking about as well, because you are convinced by whether it's the industry or parents, friends, society, the government, whatever it is, that if you don't say you aren't loved by someone else, you don't have a significant other, um, you aren't idolized, like your body isn't idolized, those are all things that society and social media is also like a big part of that, has completely convinced us that it changes your value if you are more loved, if you are more idolized, if you are ogled, those are all things that people think add to your value. And then that just plays more into the toxicity. And it sounds like that's something that like you deal with, like very
yeah.
personally every day with people. And it's like heartbreaking to hear that.
I mean, it's like you can't deny the fact that all of those things you listed like don't feel good because like it momentarily feels good to have attention, to be idolized, like all those things that you were
Mm-hmm.
saying, but it doesn't actually make you more valuable and it doesn't actually make your life better necessarily.
Mm-hmm. You
But
don't
if we
feel more fulfilled because someone
no,
cat called you on the street, you know?
no, sometimes you feel violated.
Yeah. And then there was that line, like where's the line of like being, you want to be idolized, but you don't want to be disrespected.
Hmm.
Yet that line gets really blurry in today's society because if we idolize the sexualization of our bodies and people just in general, and that that just becomes like a toxic thing because then it's always just you're always comparing yourself to other people, and like no two people can look the same, two people can eat the same thing and literally never
Hmm.
look the same ever. And again, all these ideas of health are constructed, and like
Hmm. Well,
some people, healthy looks different on everyone.
totally. It makes you feel like your body is like wrong and like how could your body be wrong when it's like your body and you just are
Mm-hmm.
and like you were just made this way and we're all made differently and the thing that's wrong is what we're trying to sell to people. It's not you, it's not your body, it's not your arm having extra fat on it or like your belly sticking out. Like that's how human bodies look. So it's like it misconstrues how we think normal bodies should be too. You know,
Mhm.
like I I saw a video of this girl and she was like, if you are ever feeling insecure or like thinking that your body should be like different or better, she's like, just go out in public and look at the normal bodies around you. Because like
Yeah.
you'll see that like in real life, people just look normal and average and we all are
Yep.
fluffy in different places and like that's what's normal. Like scrolling on TikTok and seeing models and influencers and all that stuff, like that's not normal.
No, and if
Why
you
are we
talk
comparing
to,
ourselves to that?
yeah, and if you talk to a lot of like models specifically, you will realize a lot of people that have left the modeling industry that I've had conversations with just talk about how toxic it was, how they were literally being starved, how unhealthy they were, how a lot of these people were hospitalized more than once.
Mhm.
Yet we praise that as being healthy.
Mhm.
And so, but again, we don't see those behind the scenes. We just see this construct that society has created and projected on us, and we believe it blindly. And we don't see the toxicity behind it because a lot of those things aren't shared and a lot of those things aren't talked about. It's
Like
just talked about how
bodybuilding
beautiful they
too.
look.
Like
What?
bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Like so many people are like, I want to look like a bodybuilder, like or a bikini bodybuilder, like about to step on a show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't. You know how miserable that is.
Mm-hmm. And
Uh,
how hard that is on your body and
oh
your
my
hormone
God.
health and your metabolism. And
Let me tell you, they look like that for about 5 days.
yep.
And then they have to like put more weight on and more fat and water retention because like you literally can't survive that way for very long.
No. But
Um,
again, all you're seeing is those pictures and those videos of
yeah,
them
and
up
you're
on
like they're
stage, and then you're
shredded. They look like they're
yeah.
winning. They're tan. They're all these things. Charlie and I watched the new Roadhouse this weekend with Jake
Mm-hmm.
Gyllenhaal, which
Uh-huh.
I mean the movie whatever, I could care less. I wasn't even really paying attention. It wasn't very good. But Jake Gyllenhaal stepped into the screen and dude was shredded. Like and all I could think was, "Oh my God, he must have been so miserable filming this."
Literally.
Because like his body fat must have been like 2%, like the lowest it can be without dying, like so shredded. And I know he doesn't look like that all the time.
Yeah.
And some people like just they run low, like they can roll with a low body fat percentage, but like for most people that
Mhm.
like is not sustainable and it's a miserable way to live. And then I saw a video of him on TikTok like a couple days later and he was talking about like his training program and I was like, yep,
That
that's
makes
not the
sense.
pinnacle of health right there. That is like
No.
borderline
Like,
starvation and insane training.
hmm and the idea that skinny equals healthy or bigger equals unhealthy is just, again, those constructs that we have believed and continued to emphasize throughout, especially within the fitness industry. Um, and it just makes me sad. It makes me sad when I see people that aren't like you in the training world, um, that are, selling that even more to people. Like, you are someone who sees that and is like, that is not what you try and help people in seeing like their inherent beauty. And then I've seen many trainers like do the exact opposite and almost use that to their advantage when they see people judging their own body. They're like, perfect. I can convince you to like use me even longer.
Mm-hmm.
And just some of the things I've heard trainers say, like being in the gym.
What did
My
that dude say last week?
Oh yes, so I was in a gym. I won't say what gym for privacy purposes, but I was in a gym couple weeks ago, and there was this trainer training this guy next to me and my friend, and um they were pretty close to us, so I couldn't help but hear what they were saying. And the trainer told the guy, you just buy one size smaller of pants, so then when you want to have that second snack or second meal, you just won't, because your pants are already too tight. You won't want them to like get uncomfortable. And it just like, being someone that was a college athlete, a female college athlete, who your body is judged meticulously at all times, like, it made me sick to hear not only a trainer saying this, but saying this to an adult man that, who the fuck knows what he's been through or like how
Yeah.
he sees himself. And for you to just, you're supposed to be helping these people. And
How
like,
is
that
that
was,
helping them?
yeah, like, you're not, like, nothing about that was helping it. It was him convincing that guy that you will be better if you are smaller
Mm-hmm.
and keep training with me, and I'll make that happen. And it was just such a toxic thing for me to just like witness. And I remember immediately telling Mimi, because I was like, this is my issue. This is the issue with the fitness industry. And this is
Ugh,
why I'm so
so
glad
bad.
that Mimi's in it. And Mimi, you can be such a positive influence in the industry. And I think
Thank
we
you.
just, of course, and we just think you need more people like you to just help people see and deconstruct these toxic body fitness standards, all of it. It's just,
Body fitness standards.
yeah.
I think sometimes people think if they can like break people down enough that it'll keep them coming back to them. But it, like
Yes,
I don't think it
absolutely.
does because eventually you're gonna break them.
Yeah. But people, like to use them until they do break
Also,
them.
like how the fuck is that gonna help him? Because he's gonna be uncomfortable in pants that are too small for him,
Yeah.
and then he's gonna undereat, and then he's gonna maybe overtrain, and then he's gonna yo-yo and go the other way, and then he's gonna eat too much and like just oh my God.
And that's how eating
Didn't
disorders
need to say
happen.
that,
That's
bro.
how, no, it was just so unnecessary. And it was just like, it was sad too, because the trainer said it loud enough that not only his trainee could hear it, but I could hear it. Who, God knows who else could hear that. And there are people in gym, like, I mean, you're in a gym and like so many people
Hmm.
could hear that, and that could be a complete trigger for them to send them back into something
Hmm.
very toxic. And like, not a lot of people look at it as the way I do. They would almost listen to that and be like, you're right. Oh, why didn't I think of doing that? And it just is this cycle, and you trust that these are professionals, they know what they're doing. um but again, that's just another construct of thinking that people, just because someone has a job in something, means that you should listen to them. you
Right.
know it's
Like, don't listen to us. We don't know what we're talking about.
literally, and that's another thing, like, this whole podcast is literally just us fucking talking to each other, us shooting the shit, us talking about our own experiences. And whether people listen or not, that's on them. But like,
Yeah.
we're here talking, and we're here talking to talk, and hopefully, we get some people and joining in conversations that maybe they aren't
Talk the
having in their
talk and
daily
we'll all
life.
walk the walk.
Absolutely. Like, they might be more knowledgeable. I won't say they won't be that, but that doesn't mean that you should just take everything they're saying at face value. Because again, it's all made up. People lie. People, play to what they want. I
What
mean,
benefits them.
yeah, that trader's a perfect example.
Hmm.
He wanted that man to believe that he was less than bigger, and he would be more than if he was smaller. Therefore, he, could manipulate him into continuing to train with him. Um,
Ugh.
yeah. And just things like that. It happens everywhere, and you see it everywhere. And, you just got to be careful. And, um, yeah.
I was gonna say moral of the story is that everything is constructed. And those are some great examples that we just gave you. Um, like don't take everything like Katie said at like face value because nothing is just like the way that it is. Like we somewhere someone along the way was like, I'm gonna make it this way. But it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that it is that way.
Yep. Make your own opinions, like whether that be on people, whether that be on things, whether that be on society, make your own opinions, come from your own experience. You can only speak from your experience just as much as anyone else can just speak from their experience. So, and your experience is just as valuable and just as valid as theirs. So,
Mhm.
make your own opinions and be willing to deconstruct all of the things that are constructed in this world and be willing to question those things and just be willing to see them as what they are. And that's not real.
It ain't real
Nope. Forever and always, I will always leave us off at the only thing that is real is right here and right now. So
right now.
enjoy it right now.
Life is not about becoming, it's just simply being.
It is. It is.
Make sure to follow our socials. Everything is at Nature of Being Pod. Instagram, YouTube if you want to watch the video version,
TikTok,
Spotify, TikTok,
Spotify, Apple Music.
and Apple Music. Yeah, so all the
Our
things.
TikTok is probably where you'll see a lot. You see most of the like little snippets. We talk a lot more on that. So if you ever just want some random insights or literally just want to hear us rant, because we do that a lot,
Yes.
that's where
Find
you
us on
can
the
follow
TikTok.
along with how Katie and Mimi's minds think.
Yes.
So, but again, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for being here.
Yes. And just keep being you. Everyone
Stay
needs you.
being. Bye.